welcome back to a new video and welcome back to the series on sewing techniques. In this video, I'll be showing you how to sew a collar onto a jacket. And this time we're doing it Regency style. I'm going to be showing you how I sew the collar onto my sleeveless Spencer jacket. And it is this one, just so you know what we're doing. The pattern for this jacket is also available in my Etsy shop, so I will link it down below. And I've also made a video on how to sew this jacket before, but it was brought to my attention that the instruction on the collar could have been a lot more clear. So that's why I'm making this video, to clear up some things. I've prepped the jacket, so we can already get started on the collar. So this is my jacket in this case. I've actually added sleeves this time. So this one. And I've also prepped the collar. I have basted both layers with a contrasting color, so it'll be easier to unpick later on if I decide to. Now I've also added some nice white piping to the edges, and I have clipped where I need my collar to be. So in the pattern, you will see that there's a center front line, and the center front lines are going to line up on both sides, so the collar is going to stop there. This is very important, so make sure you have that clipped. If you don't, you're not going to be able to attach your collar without any like bubbling or folding. The other thing I've done is make sure I have my notches. So we have some shoulder notches, and I always do my center back notch just because it makes it easier to line up the collar pieces onto your jacket. So very important. The other things we need are the collar pieces. I have 3 pieces. Yes, you heard that right. I have 3, and they're all different. Now we have an upper collar piece, an under collar piece, and some interlining. The reason I'm picking the interlining is because my fashion fabric is very thin, and it can use a little bit extra body just so it's going to sit nicer on the jacket, because otherwise you're going to have a very flimsy collar. The other 2 pieces, the upper and under collar, are slightly different. The reason for this is your upper collar is a little bit bigger than your under collar, and it will help it roll nicely over the under collar, giving it a nicer drape when you're wearing it. And talking about drape, the interlining that I use, because it is a fabric, it's like a horsehair canvas type of fabric, I've cut it on the diagonal, and this helps it to drape nicer as well. If you cut it on the straight grain, it can only curve that way, and it's just not always going to give you the nicest drape. So if you have enough, I would highly suggest you put it on the diagonal just to have it look even better. Now, what do we need to sew this thing? First of all, you need your hand sewing stuff. So your needles, your threads, your scissors, and I'm also going to be using my antique sewing machine that I fixed up. If you haven't seen the video about it, I'll link it up there. And talking about that video, I have a little rectification to make. When I looked up the number of my antique sewing machine in the database, I kind of forgot a digit. So that meant that my sewing machine is not from 1910 like I thought, but it's from 1919. And it actually explains a lot. The person that I bought the sewing machine from told me it was a Singer Red Eye Model 66. So I kind of knew that, but when I looked up the sewing machine in the database and missed that digit, I thought I must have been hearing it wrong, or he didn't know, and I thought it was a Model 27. It is not, because I looked up some 27s and there were definitely some discrepancies, so this definitely clears it up. Now, this just goes to show you that when I do research, sometimes stuff happens, and I'm more than happy to admit my mistakes. So thank you very much to the follower that pointed this out to me in the comments, and yeah. This just goes to show to always check your digits. Now that we've cleared that up, let's get back to the project. Let's get a bit closer up and show you how to sew this collar. As you can see, I've prepped my collar already. And just to show you the layers, it is very important to use the correct order of the layers. So first you're going to pin your 2 fashion fabrics together, and then you pin your horsehair, canvas, whatever interlining you're using on the outside. Because when we're going to turn this, it is going to end up on the inside. The first time ever I did this, my brain was like, it needs to go in the middle. I did that, and then it ends up on the outside. And you can unpick the whole thing. So keep that order in mind. And then the other thing, because as you can see, our pieces are not the same size, we need to work them in a little bit. And the way I do that is I pin the outsides first. I pin the notches that I've made. This is why they're so important. And then I'm going to work the space in. So I pin my fashion fabrics first, divide that space, and then we need to get it tight onto the canvas. So I already lay it out a little bit and divide it, and then I'm just going to put tension on it and round it. So as you can see, this way you can pull it tight to each other, move your pin to all 3 layers, and that way we're going to divide all this space. Once it is done, you can sew this outside line and make sure that you mark where the edge of your seam allowance is, because this seam allowance needs to be kept free all the way through. The reason for that is we needed to attach it to the collar. So make a little mark there and on the other side so you know where to stop sewing. Now once you've pinned this all around, you can sew it and then we can attach it to the jacket. So let's get to it. Now that the collar is sewn, I always like to give it a good press just to get all the wrinkles out before we attach it to the jacket, because once it is in place, it's going to be a lot harder to sew. And the other thing we're going to do is notch all our corners. The reason we are doing that is if you don't notch your corner, it's just going to try to fold over itself when you turn it inside out. So by notching, you're going to give this all some more space. Need to sharpen this one. When you turn this inside out, see, you're giving it more space. If you leave this and you turn it inside out, it's going to fold over itself and it won't turn nicely. So notch all the round corners and just see when you turn it inside out where it needs some more, and then cut some more, and then we are going to attach. Now time to assemble. You're going to pin this to where you notched your neckline, and then make sure that you don't use the seam allowance of the collar itself. Like, you want your stitching to continue. If this is where your stitching ends, then that is the point where you need to pin it. Then you're going to pin your shoulder points and center backs. And then pin everything in between. Now that the collar is sewn on, you can check whether your corners are nice and neat. If not, you can always use some needle and thread to fix up some of the last stitches. Especially those corners can get very difficult if you're working with piping. Now all that's left to do is we need to hand sew this last bit to the collar. So you're going to fold over your seam allowance, pin them on your collar, like this. And if you do that all the way around, your collar's all nice and attached. Now, what does help is if you are hand sewing, it's great if you already base this before you hand sew. So you can just base this in place and then follow it with head stitches. It's just going to save your hands a lot of strength, because then you don't have to keep it in place and sew it. So that's a small tip. I'm going to sew all this by hand and then show you what the finished product looks like. And the jacket is all done. And look at how different it looks just from picking a different fabric. I always love when you have a pattern that turns out so different just based on the materials that you use. So it just goes to show you can just make 10 of these and they'll all look different. Also, the addition of the little sleeve, I think, definitely makes it, and it's just going to make it easier for me when I switch out with just a petticoat underneath. So when I'm cheating my way through Florida weather. So yeah, that's why I decided to go for a sleeve this time. But the collar, look at that. So I am definitely glad that I picked the interlining because on its own, it definitely would not have stood like this. It definitely gives it the shape that it needs. And now I just need some buttons on here. I might just do fabric cover buttons again. I don't know. But as you can see, the reason that I told you to clip here is because this is going to overlap. And then you're going to have your buttons here. And that way this all fits together. And the nice thing is, because of this type of collar, you can also decide to wear it open and give it more of a lapel color vibe. So you could do the same color on the inside. But yeah, it just shows how many options there are. And look at the collar on the back. Like, it really stands and does what it needs to be doing. This is definitely going to be staying in place when I do all my socializing and dancing around. For those of you that watch my channel and are not subscribed yet, please consider doing so because every single subscriber to my channel really helps me with what I'm doing. It also tells YouTube that what I make is not boring, so thank you for that. And if after watching this video you feel like there is something that I need to know as well, or there's something missing in your video, please do comment down below and I will add it to my to-do list of new videos to make because my job here is to make stuff easier on you and to help you in your sewing journey. And also, if you like watching these kinds of videos, make sure to go check out this one and learn more about other sewing techniques. So thank you everyone for being here, and I will see you all in my next video.